Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. One small item, then on to the main subject for today. The small item is something that just came in just a little while ago. I think you're all going to find it interesting. You may already know about it because I record these the day before you see them, but you don't get my commentary. You have to wait for that. So first the headline, just 5 GOP senators vote Trump impeachment trial is constitutional. The Senate sent a strong signal Tuesday that there are not nearly enough votes to convict President Trump in an impeachment trial when only 5 GOP senators rejected an effort by Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, Republican, to declare the looming trial unconstitutional. The Senate voted 55 to 45 to set aside Paul's motion, with all but 5 GOP senators siding with Paul. And here, well, this is not going to surprise you. Here are the 5 senators. And did you notice the article referred to Trump as President Trump? I think you're going to see a lot of that. You're not going to see too much. Well, I'm sure people will refer to Biden as President Biden, but I think a lot of people still think of Trump as President Trump. I may have more on this later because he just trolled Biden. Biden, you may recall, set up after he won the election or he was declared the winner, he set up the office of the president-elect. There's no such position, obviously, under the Constitution. I've never heard of anybody doing that before. But Trump just set up an office, the office of the former president, which apparently has already made a few liberals angry. And it also looks like Trump is going to, well, it looks like the idea of forming a third party, that's dead now from what I understand. But what he is going to do is, as I said yesterday, he's going to help Republicans retake the Senate and the House, but also he's going to make a point of, if I read correctly, he's going to make a point of going after never Trump Republicans. He's going to primary these Republicans, I think. He's going to find candidates and give them endorsements. I think you could probably say goodbye to Liz Cheney. It'll be interesting to see what happens to Lisa Murkowski, because, well, here's the list of the 5 senators. I don't think it's going to surprise you who voted for the trial to go ahead. The Republican senators, I mean, all the Democrats voted to go ahead. But on the Republican side, Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Pat Toomey. None of those names surprise me. Don't surprise me at all. Let's see if I got anything else here. Nope, that's it. That's it on that story. It's just that well, I don't know if you saw the photos today. I saw a photo of the Democrats, the House Democrats, walking over the article of impeachment. I don't understand why they don't realize how silly they look. They just look silly. It's just a ridiculous partisan exercise, which reminds me of one more thing. Do you know who's going to be presiding over the Senate trial? John Roberts, the Chief Justice, who is supposed to, he's required under the Constitution to preside over the impeachment trial or the removal trial of an impeached president. He declined. He's not going to do it. It's obvious why, because Joe Biden is the president, but they want to try Donald Trump. But you know who is going to preside? It's going to be Pat Leahy, the Democratic senator. So he's going to be, well, first of all, he has a reputation as being one of the, if not the nastiest senator, or at least probably the nastiest senator in the Senate, but definitely nasty guy. He's going to be, well, he's going to be presiding over the trial, and he's going to be voting. He's going to be a judge, and he's going to be on the jury, judge and juror. So is this not a wonderful, perfectly fair trial? Remember when they impeached him in the first place in the House, there were no hearings, at least no hearings at which the president's counsel was allowed to testify, provide any defense. They just went ahead and did it right away, and it looks like they're trying to do the same thing with the trial. This trial is going nowhere, and I hope, full disclosure, I'm a conservative. Always keep that in mind when you weigh whatever I say. So I'm hopeful as a conservative that this comes back to really bite the Democrats in the 2022 midterm elections. And I hope Trump runs and wins again in 2024. I think it's like the scene from Star Wars when Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan Kenobi says, "You strike me down, I will come back more powerful than you can imagine." Something like that. Trump will be even stronger if he comes back in 2024, I predict, than he would have been if he would have just been re-elected in 2020. So I am personally looking forward to that. But whether it's Trump or not, I really want a Republican to win. But if it is Trump, he's going to be smarter this time, and I hope the Republicans will be smarter too in the House and Senate and work with Trump so they don't lose the House and or the Senate again in the 2026 midterms, because traditionally the party in power loses seats. So that's also a hope of mine, that when the Republicans, as I predict, take back the Senate and the House, that they win by a very large margin, so they can lose some seats but still remain in charge. And I hope, again, finally, that the Republicans this time and Trump get something done, because if they don't, they risk losing control again of the House and the Senate. And then you have a lame duck, because it's his second term. You're going to have a real lame duck Trump who won't be able to do anything. So now on to today's subject, which actually may be shorter than that small subject, which turned out not to be so small. I talked yesterday about how there are no moderate Democrats. However much they claim to be moderates, the liberal far left base of their party is so strong that when they get into power, they are forced to move way to the left. In fact, I will give you Schwimmer's law of partisan politics. This is a law that you're hearing it for the first time, but there are only two ways that you can govern this country at the national level. You can do it with all conservatives or a coalition of conservatives and moderate Democrats. You notice I didn't mention liberal. Once you put liberals in, especially if liberals are in charge, nothing happens. It's just a big mess. We're seeing that already with Biden in the White House for just about a week, and that's it. And we already see disaster looming, and I predict it's going to be more disaster going forward. But if you put liberals in the equation at all, then you have a mess. So if you are a moderate Democrat or claiming to be a moderate Democrat running for president, and you're watching this vlog and you are expecting to govern as a moderate, you're going to have to do what Bill Clinton did. Bill Clinton, he worked with the liberal wing of his party when he was elected in '92, and he lost the House and the Senate 2 years later. And then he started working with the Republicans, and he got something done. So actually, let me take that back. I said you could work with conservatives, you can work with Republicans, you can work with all the Republicans and just enough Democrat votes to get something passed, and you can govern as a moderate and get reelected if you are a Democrat. But once you put liberals into the mix, then the whole thing goes to just down the toilet, because they are so far left and so uncompromising that nothing will get done. I believe we are seeing that proven out right now. And, just wait and see. We don't have any choice for the next 4 years. We have to wait and see, unless the Republicans take over the House and or the Senate and hold hearings on Hunter Biden, and we find out that Biden is the quote-unquote big guy, then maybe he'll be impeached. But if he's impeached, if he gets removed from office, then you get a president, Kamala Harris, and that's, do you think Biden is bad? Well, we'll just leave it right there. You can just imagine. But I was talking yesterday about there being no moderates, and as examples, I described some of Biden's executive orders. One of the examples I cited yesterday was women's sports or female sports, and his order that any educational or any federal institution getting federal funds had to, but we're talking especially about education, had to let transgender students or transgender people use, the opposite sexes locker rooms, for instance, the men's rooms and the bathrooms. And that reminds me, I was one time shopping in Trader Joe's. This is back in New York, not in Tennessee where I am now. I lived in New York for 40 years, moved here a couple of years ago. But I remember going into the men's room in Trader Joe's just as an obvious, lesbian came out, a man or a woman dressed like a man. It bothers me. It bothers me. But anyways, that's my personal story. But what I want to talk about today is, well, here's the first headline. I got two for you. Biden orders nationwide cover-up of differences between men and women in Orwellian crusade for, quote, equality, unquote. As he promised while campaigning, and that's right, while campaigning. He said he was going to do this. So you feminists out there who are up in arms about this, you knew what was coming. Biden, you can be sure that any far left, if it's a moderate promise that a Democratic presidential candidate makes, it's never going to happen when that candidate gets into office, if that candidate wins the election. But if it's a left-wing promise, you can be sure that that promise, the new president will do whatever he can to make good on that promise. So, as he promised while campaigning on his first day in office, Joe Biden issued an executive order requiring every institution that receives federal funding to put biological males on women's sports teams, in their locker rooms, on overnight trips, and more. And the same for injecting women into private male spaces. The executive order demands that all federally funded institutions affirm people's gender dysphoria rather than treat it and help inflict their psychological distress on other vulnerable people. And that word or that phrase, gender dysphoria, or that term, it's a medical term. That's what it really is. What we're doing, and this could be a future vlog, that I see us going into a dark age. It's turning into the Weimar Republic, where all kinds of behaviors being mainstreamed. It's a psychological malady, gender dysphoria, thinking that you are the opposite sex of what your actual sex is. But we don't treat that anymore. Now we normalize it, and we have to let them use the bathrooms of the opposite sex. And more important, what I'm talking about now is let them compete on, well, lady, you don't see many women or cross-dressing women who act like men trying to get onto the men's sports team. You don't see much of that, do you? I can't think of a single example, as a matter of fact, personally. But you do see the opposite of men getting on claiming to be women and getting now onto the women's sports teams. And the reason is obvious. There may be some rare exceptions, but generally, almost, I would say, over 90% and probably approaching 100%, a woman competing on a team of otherwise all males is not going to win, is going to be at a severe disadvantage. But the other way around, which is why you see these men who dress like women and they want to compete on the women's team because they have a significant advantage. They are probably going to win. In fact, you can see in the thumbnail, the image I used to illustrate this article, and you can see it on this headline. I'm going to put it up in a second. But you see a man who claims to be a woman winning a race. That's going to happen all the time. If you're a woman, I'll get to this in a second actually. Let me just give you the headline, get that out of the way. Biden's executive order unlevels the playing field for girls. This is a New York Post editorial. So the Post says, I link to these articles, by the way, so you can read the whole article, links in the description. The notion is patently ridiculous and may result in millions of girls losing out on prestigious sports victories and maybe scholarships that go with them. It also risks greater injuries to women. A better solution, and this is, I'm happy to put this in here because this is what I suggested myself in an earlier vlog on the same subject. A better solution perhaps might be to give trans athletes a league of their own. And that's my suggestion. That's one of my suggestions. I'll give you the other one in a second. But one of them is that just create a separate team, and the men who think they are women or want to say they're women, and the women who want to say they are men, give them their own league. Let them compete there, and let the biological, the actual, the men who are happy to claim to be men and the women who are happy to be women have their own leagues as they have now. So as the article or that editorial said, they don't get shut out of scholarships. You have to remember, it's not just a matter of feeling bad if you lose. Colleges cost money. Some of these colleges are $60,000, $65,000 a year. A scholarship is a lot of money, and you're shutting these women out in some cases who otherwise would get a scholarship. They're not. They're going to go to men who can also get, they probably wouldn't get a scholarship if they competed in the men's divisions. That's why they're competing in the women's divisions. It's just tragic. It is really tragic, and that's what you voted for when you voted for Joe Biden. Now, my other suggestion is something that I remember from my youth. When I was a kid, about 10, 11 years old, one of the older kids, about 14 years old, 13, 14 years old, got the idea of forming a baseball league and then competing with kids in other neighborhoods. The older kids would form their leagues, and we called I lived on Mendota Street. That was the street in Detroit I grew up on. It was called Mendota. So we voted on a name, and we wanted to call ourselves the Mendota Monsters. But the 14-year-old kid, whose name was Joel, I don't remember his last name, really interesting guy, nice guy, but he said that name was too rough or something, so we made it the Mendota Mustangs. The point I'm getting at is that this is a league that we formed ourselves, and teams that the neighborhood kids formed themselves, and then we would play baseball against each other. I still remember the home run I hit. I won't bore you with that. It was exciting to me. But anyways, the team had nothing to do, this whole league had nothing to do with the Little League. It was something that we did ourselves. It was not something organized. And I would suggest the same thing for all these girls in college, women in college and girls in high school. I would say, if there's going to be a cross-dressing man competing in your league and you know you're not going to win, so don't even bother. Don't even bother to, go to the classes to exercise and practice or whatever your sport, but don't bother entering the league. What's the point? You're not going to win. You know you have no chance. Instead, I'll get to what I'm saying in a second. You kind of can see where I'm going, but let these transgender athletes, especially, let's say if there's only one or two in a school, let them go onto the track field by themselves and be all by themselves and just see how wonderful that sport is. Now, meanwhile, the girls and women, I would say, form your own leagues. It should be easy to do now with social media and the internet. Form your own private league and compete there. So you get to compete fairly on a fair field, and it also shows the government, it shows Joe Biden and these liberals that they cannot force their policy, their crazy ideas about sexual identity on the rest of us. That is my suggestion, just as Parler is looking, sooner or later, Parler will be back on the internet. And I told you in an earlier vlog about Tim Berners-Lee. He was the inventor of the World Wide Web. He created it. He is very distressed of what the internet has become. It was supposed to be an open forum for everybody. Now it's turned into something that is dominated by a few large companies who can keep the rest of us off if they so choose, which is what happened with Parler. He is working on a new World Wide Web. I forgot what he's going to call it, but something that truly would be open and that nobody could be shut out of. So I am kind of following this story, and I am hoping, Godspeed, Sir Tim, because he got knighted for that. So Sir Tim, Godspeed with that, and Godspeed the Queen while I'm at it, or God save the Queen. But I guess that's it for today. That's my suggestion. Girls and women, don't take this lying down, and don't give credibility to this ridiculous idea of men competing in women's sports. Go and form your own, and then we'll see which gets the most coverage on the sports channels and which events people want to see. I know what I want to see. I'd like to see a thumbs up if you like this video, and share with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? Comment section below the video, where you can also ask questions, suggest future topics. You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. You could visit my music channel of original music. There's a link to that in the description. And most of all, I really appreciate the time that you spend with me. It's good to be able to talk to all of you. I hope someday I become popular enough that it looks like I have a ways to go, but popular enough that I could do a meetup, that I could go somewhere, come to your city and meet all of you. That would really be wonderful, because right now I'm just looking at a camera lens. But until that day happens, I hope you all come back and visit me here. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see you all again, bye.